Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome once again to the Thursday evening look into the Holy Book Devotional, and I am your host, Charles Logan. Well, tonight I would ask you to just say a short prayer for me that I don't get a little choked up over this particular one. It was a very difficult one to write, so if I get a little emotional, just bear with me. I call it, Are There Any Prophets Left? And now I can imagine, and I can just see Jeremiah looking over the sprawling landscape that held Jerusalem in the palm of his unfettered love, its formidable walls standing strong against all enemies. The limestone hills, dotted with the occasional terebinthus and olive trees, spoke silent testimony. In his relatively short lifetime, compared to the timeless existence of God's anointed city, Jeremiah knew that for hundreds of years the inhabitants of the holy city had grown fat with the blessings of prosperity, and confident in their belief that Jerusalem was the one place on earth that God would protect from any intrusion. Jerusalem was the very personification of the Lion of David that held the temple and the mercy seat where God himself came to rest. But Jeremiah could see beyond the prosperity and the luxurious living. He could look beyond the gluttony, and he could see into the hearts of the people, God's covenant people. And he wept. The people's desire for the worship of God and the obedience to his laws had been replaced by avarice and sinfulness and greed, and most of all, the abandonment of the covenant of obedience. Jeremiah, known as the weeping prophet, cried in his heart because he loved God, he loved his laws, and he loved the city that had become a haven for pagan gods and unspeakable sins. Greed, and most of all, the abandonment of the covenant of obedience. You know, being a prophet, speaking God's words, was no easy task 2,600 years ago. You had to say things that people who were absorbed in their own indulgence certainly did not want to hear. In Jeremiah 56, he said, "My people have been lost sheep. Their shepherds have led them astray. They have turned them away on the mountains. They have gone from mountain to hill. They have forgotten their resting place. All who found them have devoured them." And their adversaries said, "We have not offended because they have sinned against the Lord, the habitation of justice, the Lord, the hope of their fathers." Now, Jeremiah loved the city and he loved the people, but he loved and he desired to obey God more. In the midst of the prosperity that he saw, he said in Jeremiah 50:25-26, "The Lord has opened his armory and has brought out the weapons of his indignation. For this is the work of the Lord of God of hosts in the land of the Chaldeans. Come against her from the furthest border, open her storehouses, cast her up as heaps of ruin, and destroy her utterly. Let nothing of her be left." The people hated Jeremiah. There's no other way to put it. They placed him in stocks in the temple. Later officials imprisoned him for claiming Babylon would destroy the city. He was thrown into a deep and muddy cistern to starve, He was rescued, but because he loved the city, he even suggested that they submit to Babylon to save it. Just think about Paris during World War II. I know that I'm talking to an audience who also loves this country. We have lived to see many changes as a result of catastrophe and wars and even changes in philosophy. This country has suffered wounds caused by attempts to undermine the Christian foundations upon which our laws were originally created. We have even heard the voice of reason at times telling us that we have lost our way. Sure, there have been modern-day prophets, if you want to call them that. They have spoken about the dangers of losing our country, dangers that would come from within. Are we so different from the people in Jeremiah's day? We hear modern-day voices of warning. For the most part, they fall on deaf ears. We are entertained by songs and poetry, but the words of wisdom are drowned out by radical political rhetoric. The noisy celebrations of those who become rich through graft and corruption don't even raise the eyebrows of the justice system. Even some of our most familiar institutions of ecclesiastical teaching are no more than showcases of a new and growing popularity of the prosperity gospel. I love this country, but I also believe that we are on the very edge of a precipice when one misstep could just cast us into a bottomless pit of despair. Listen to the voices of modern day wise men and even prophets like Billy Graham. This is what he said. Why has there been such an increase in trouble in the United States? Could it be that our sins are catching up with us? Centuries ago, Moses proclaimed to Israel that if she served God, she would be the most blessed of all nations. But if she disobeyed God, terrifying judgment would surely come. We may be on the very edge of that precipice right now. We all know that for years, as we slept in our own confidence and protected comfort zones, our nation has been following a very dangerous path. There will always be wars and talks of wars, but what I'm suggesting is that we are following a path that is taking us further and further away from God. We have already taken him out of our classrooms and our boardrooms and our city halls, and we've even transformed his image in some churches. Just recently, Bishop Yvette Flunder, a presiding leader in the United Church of Christ and senior pastor of the City of Refuge, UCC, in Oakland, California, said this, and forgive me. The Bible is words of God, not the Word of God. She reportedly proposed a third testament to address passages used to justify the marginalization of women, LGBTQ plus individuals, and historic slavery. God save us. But listen to someone who I consider a modern-day prophet because of his wise warnings. And here are some of Paul Harvey's words. He spoke in the broadcast in 1965, and that's 60 years ago. He said this, and the title of his radio broadcast was If I Were the Devil. To the young, I would whisper that the Bible is a myth. I would convince them that man created God and not the other way around. I would teach them to pray to our Father who art in Washington. to educate authors how to make lurid literature exciting so that anything else would seem dull. If I were the devil, I would take from those who have and give to those who want, until I kill the incentive of the ambitious. And what do you bet? That I could get every state to promote gambling. People, are we listening? So far as my limited knowledge of theology is concerned, I believe that there are two kinds of prophets. In a biblical sense, there are the true prophets and the false prophets. The true prophets speak of God not wanting to draw attention to themselves. Their prophecies prove to be historically accurate. The false prophets, on the other hand, seek their own glory and depend on the moment's dynamics to create interest. Some examples of true prophets are, of course, and for instance, Moses, who prophesied the true nature of God and introduced the next covenant. There was Elijah, who prophesied the power of God and challenged the prophets of Baal. Then there was Elisha, who emphasized God's work after the prophet's departure. And most importantly, there was Isaiah, who prophesied the rejection of the true Messiah. Now today, in this world of artificial intelligence, those who would pass themselves off as modern-day prophets, speaking for God, have many ways of beguiling the senses with all kinds of visual delights. And believe me, we haven't seen the end of self-proclaimed prophets by any means. Those false messiahs who claim to hold the secrets of the future, unfortunately, though in most cases, do little more than lead their followers into a path of total destruction. You know, there is, however, another classification of individuals who neither claim special spiritual gifts nor pass themselves off as modern-day prophets. Their words are warning to those who would listen, to keep vigilant and observant. They warn of a coming catastrophe of wide social and economic proportions, or denial of divine intervention. Their warnings take the form of prose, of songs and ballads. They live among us, but yet we hardly take notice of their presence beyond their celebrity status. Their words of wisdom mimic those of others like Paul Harvey and Neil Simon, who said the words of the prophets are written on the bathroom walls. So pick yourself up off the floor and brush yourself off and hear some of the words of George Carlin. He said, and his words were recorded September the 25th of 2009 on Online America. And he said this, and I quote, "The paradox of our time and history is that we have taller buildings, but shorter tempers, wider freeways, but narrower viewpoints. We spend more, but have less. We buy more, but enjoy less. We have bigger houses and smaller families, more conveniences, but less time. We have more degrees, but less sense, more knowledge, but less judgment, more experts, yet more problems, more medicine, but less wellness. We drink too much, smoke too much, spend too recklessly, laugh too little, and drive too fast. We get too angry and stay up too late, get up too tired, read too little, watch TV too much, and pray too seldom. We have multiplied our possessions but reduced our values. We talk too much, love too seldom, and hate too often. We've learned how to make a living but not a life. We've added years to life but not life to years. We've been all the way to the moon and back. We have trouble crossing the street to meet a new neighbor, though. We've conquered outer space, but not inner space. We've done larger things, but not better things. We've cleaned up the air, but polluted the soul. We've conquered the atom, but not our prejudice. We write more, but learn less. We plan more, but accomplish less. We've learned to rush, but not to wait. We build more computers to hold more information, to produce more copies. But we communicate less and less. We've learned to rush, but as I said, not to wait. These are the times of fast food and slow digestion, big men and small character, steep profits but shallow relationships. These are the days of two incomes but more divorce, fancier houses but broken homes. These are the days of quick trips, disposable diapers, a throwaway morality, one-night stands, overweight bodies, and pills that do everything from cheer to quiet to kill. It is a time when there is much in the showroom window, but nothing in the stockroom. A time when technology can bring this letter to you, and a time when you can share the insight or just simply hit delete. Remember, spend some time with your loved ones because they're not going to be around forever. Remember to say a kind word to someone who looks up to you in awe because soon that little person will grow up and leave your side. Remember to give a warm hug to the one next to you because that is the only treasure that you can give with your heart, and it doesn't cost a cent. Remember to say, I love you to a partner and your loved ones. But most of all, mean it. A kiss and embrace will mend hurt when it comes from deep inside of you. Remember to hold hands and cherish the moment, for someday that person will not be there again. Give time to love and give time to speak and give time to share the precious thoughts in your mind. And always remember, life is not measured by the number of breaths that we take, but by the number of moments that take our breath away. Jeremiah looked over the ramparts of the holy city, but he saw visions of destruction and sadness and captivity in a foreign land. The people were celebrating their good lives, but did not have time to listen to the voice of reason. Are we too absorbed in our own entitled wants and desires to see that our way of life is about to change? I don't know what God has in store for the United States of America, but whichever way that it goes, whether it's continues as a democratic republic or turns to a progressive socialism or even annihilation, there's always hope and reassurance for the faithful. We may become increasingly smaller in numbers, but God will never forsake us or abandon us, his children. No matter what system we live under, but listen to the voices of reason crying out in the wind, voices of the modern day prophets and wise men Listen for that still, small voice and heed his words of conviction. And most of all, love as your life depended on it. Because, my friends, it does. Well, thank you once again, all of you, for tuning in to the Thursday evening Look into the Holy Devotional. And as always, it is my pleasure to share these thoughts. I just hope that you found something of value in them. But until we meet again, Lord willing, I would ask God to bless each and every one of you and have a great rest of the week. And I will say good night.